Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, sisters. This is Coach Rukshanara. Rabbi shrah li Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So today, I wanted to talk about the topic of special needs and what it means to you. I wanted to bring it up in this community, the Sister Seeking Salam community, because we are a group of Muslim sisters getting together to support each other. And this topic, like Sister Fiona said in the chat, is one that is not often easily discussed and is rarely talked about in the Muslim communities. I feel very passionately about it because I am a mum with children with additional needs, and I have worked with children who have complex needs. And there is the experiences that I've had of children from Muslim community is quite different, and I wanted to provide a very a non-judgmental space for mums or anybody who themselves has additional needs or who is concerned about family members to come and talk about the experiences, what it is like, what's come up for them, what it means for them, and I just want to create awareness, increase awareness, because I really do feel like it is still 2022 is still one of those topics that in certain communities is still treated as a taboo. And some people, I was speaking to someone recently and they were like, they were in a Muslim school setting, and a lot of the parents really don't want to get the children diagnosed because they want it to go away. They're worried about, what it might mean for their child to be labeled. These kind of things I want to be talked about. I'll put forward my opinions, and these are my opinions only. But before I go on, I just want to talk about what special needs generally means. And special needs, broadly speaking, is a very broad term. It is individuals with disabilities. It's really broad because it can be difficulty with reading to unable to complete most basic tasks. And it can include any various difficulties. It could be physical, emotional, behavioral, often, learning disabilities that causes an individual to require some support. And special needs generally refers to a person with one or more specific diagnoses or disabilities, and this is not exclusive. So often when people talk about special needs, they talk about autism, ADHD, learning difficulties like dyslexia, Down syndrome, speech disorders, disorders that make physical activity challenging. For example, deafness or blindness, actual physical differences like dwarfism, anxiety, depression, other mental health issues. And like I said, this is not exclusive list, but this is what is a broad term. And it is not a legal term. And in recent years, many people have started to avoid using special needs as a term. And this is because sometimes people find special needs, they do feel that special needs is a term that's been stigmatized. Some parents, though, will find words like disability and impairment potentially embarrassing or insulting. They don't want to refer to the child in that way. And so using a euphemism like special needs has been something that's considered more comfortable. The truth is, any disability, whatever, whether it's you're born with it or whether it came about because you've had an accident, should not be seen as shameful. But some people believe that use of an euphemism in place of a disability creates a sense that there's something negative to hide. And so today I'm going to talk about it in terms of special needs or additional needs, whatever, it's each of their own, however you want to describe your child or yourself or these disabilities, or these unique individuals, whether you want to refer to them as having special needs, being differently abled, being neurodiverse, or having a disability. I just want to talk about it. I want awareness raised. I mean, no offense with any of the terms I use, because I don't personally take any offense to any of these terms. But I mean, no offense. And what I say is my opinion. Because like, for example, I can use the word disability, but then some people would believe that it implies a person can't do something very well. But if, for example, if you have a child with autism who is considered neurodiverse, they might actually be able to do certain things very well. They just do it differently because their brain function is different. I don't want to lose the audience today with talking about terminology, but I just wanted that as a caveat because I mean, no offense, because it came up somebody brought it up to my attention very politely recently. The term special needs is because it is one that's readily used and often used and readily, understood, rather than terms like neurodiversity, and some people consider to be less offensive than disability or impairment. I've put it out there. But whatever term you want to use, child with disability, or child with, additional needs, or an adult with additional needs, someone who needs support. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it means, for us in the community, particularly in the Muslim community, because I'll be very honest, my experience is that whilst certain communities have moved forward in terms of accepting people who are different, there is still a lot of how shall I put it? It's still considered a taboo subject. There is a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about a person being labeled, and that's where parents who might have children who are different, who haven't been diagnosed, but the teacher might be coming to them and saying to them, like, I do think your child needs to be observed by a specialist. Parents aren't giving permission because they don't want the child to be they actually don't want the child to be diagnosed. They either hope that it goes away, they grow out of it. But it's so important, sisters, having worked in the school setting, that your early diagnosis is so important. And so we as a community need to accept it. And so that parents don't feel that shame, because why are people getting offended as the use of special needs? Because they're saying, oh, special needs suggests that you have to have a euphemism for disability, and disability should be accepted. But why is disability not accepted in certain community? Or why is the word special needs stigmatized? I want to question that, because it, truth of the matter is, people in certain Muslim communities, well, many Muslim communities, they still don't talk about it. They just it really isn't awareness. And so when people don't know about it, they fear it, or people fill in the gaps. Like, for example, I've worked, I'm a mum with children with special needs. I have worked alongside, and I have, been to conferences for parents, and my heart breaks. I get emotional. And my heart breaks for moms who think that they have done, excuse me, for moms who think that they did something wrong in their pregnancy because their child is autistic, or their child has ADHD. Excuse me. I have come across too many people who have been told that when they were pregnant with this child, they didn't pray properly, or they did something wrong, and that is why the child was born with a disability. I have come across too many instances where parents shy away from getting support for their child who desperately needs it, because they're scared of what it might mean for them and their child. I'm a mother who had to witness my son being bullied because he was different. I know what it's like, but I want everybody to understand and be aware of how important it is how we perceive these unique, beautiful superheroes, these unique individuals who put up with so much, who are just different, who are, Allah has given them these differences, not because they did something wrong or because their parents did something wrong, but because Allah chose them to have a place in this world. Yeah, they belong here. But we, as the rest of the community who are not neurodiverse, who, if you want to say neurotypical, those of us who our brain functions in a similar way to our peers, who are not, we don't consider ourselves to be different, we accept them. We accept them in a way that we want to be accepted as well. But we as a community need to actually talk about the fact that this is happening in our community, that people are still judging, especially women, not just women, but even I remember going to National Autistic Society conference, and in between some of the sessions they had, parents were talking, and I remember a father talking about his son, and it was very clear to me that he loved his son. There's no doubt in the way he spoke about his son. But his son was couldn't express himself, and so sometimes was biting him because he was having what is known as sensory issues, but he didn't know how to support him at the time. And you know what he said, this Muslim brother, he said, I must have sinned so badly in the past for God to be punishing me now. My heart broke because he genuinely felt as a father he did something wrong, because that's what he's been told. That's a belief that he has, that and he's parenting from that place. Do you know what that does to him and the child? I really, really want sisters to change this lens that we have. And I'm not saying that everybody has this view, and I'm not saying that everybody has this opinion, but it is so important that we view these unique individuals differently. And it starts really genuinely starts, and it's my opinion, that in order to support a child with additional needs, we must first, or alongside, support the child's mother or father. Because a parent, the caregiver of the child, their mindset has a big impact on the child's well-being. Because if a parent's thinking they've done something wrong, they're going to parent from a place like that. And the child's going to think that they've done something wrong as well. And if the parent thinks they're being punished and therefore the child's got a special need or an additional need because of their mistake in the past, a child's going to think there's something wrong with them. But no, I really want people to, I really want, sorry, I really feel passionate about this. I'm sure you guys have gathered this. I really want the lens to change, but it starts with us discussing it, talking about it, and being open about it, and being brave and coming out and talking about it. If you told me 5-6 years ago that I would be like hosting live and talking openly about this, I would have said no way. I couldn't. I myself, my own experience, was scared to tell people about my children at when they were younger, because first of all, and this is my experience, and I know it's not everybody's, they might label my child what it means for their future. They might label me, and people did blame me. I lived through it. Guess what? I don't have to accept it. But my coaching has helped me and come to this place. And I just really want to empower other moms, but also I want everybody to understand, even if you don't have children with special needs, for you to understand that a mother of that child, their well-being, their mental well-being is so key, so important. And so you judging them because the child quote unquote misbehaving or not behaving like what your child or somebody else's child, that judgment really impacts them negatively. We want to raise empowered mothers, okay? So we want to raise resilient children with special educational needs or additional needs, yeah? But in order to do that, it comes from the mother. And in order for the mothers to believe that they are worthy, that they are not to blame. Let's be honest, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, I can't remember the quote off by heart, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that, no soul shall burden the sin of another. And I will quote exact in a bit. But a child cannot take on the sin of a parent. It doesn't work like that. Okay, that's in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very clear about that. But the mere fact that you're thinking about the disability as a sin or a disability as a negative thing, that in itself is a problem. That in itself is a problem. And the quote is, no soul burdened with sin will bear the burden of another. And that's the Quran, Surah Al-An'am in 6164. That in itself is a problem. It's viewing the child as a problem because they're different, because they have additional needs. Viewing an adult, I have coached adults who got later diagnosed with neurodiversity, I think it was autism and ADHD. I've coached them, and it's really heartbreaking how low the self-esteem is because they were just so different. They were able in so many other different ways, but because they didn't understand things in the same way as their peers, they were really put down. And as adults, excuse me, I think somebody's Could you please mute, sisters? Because as adults, it's really they got impacted by how they were negatively treated as a young child because they were different. And you know, people with additional needs, whatever they may be, whether they're neurodiverse or whether they have physical differences, they are able in different ways, and as a mother to that child, Allah, like the sister said in one of the chat rooms, it's only as, Allah blesses someone who is very capable to raise a child with additional needs. It takes someone special to raise a special child. I mean, and it's just some people throw that around, but it is true. I believe it, speaking from experience. And what I really, I mean, I'm going to open the talk up in the chat up in a bit, but what I really want is awareness and the belief that, first of all, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Disability is no embarrassment, no embarrassment, nothing to be ashamed of. But things we can talk about it, but the reality is, I have people, and I have spoken to someone as recently as, I think yesterday or the day before, saying, in a Muslim, they worked in a school setting, and the Muslim parents just did not want to get the kids diagnosed because they don't want that label. And why don't they want that label? Because that label means that child, to them, it means something about them and their child. It's two comes in two sides. One side is, did I do something wrong that my child is different? And the other thing is, will my child belong in the world? How will my child belong in the world? The world is a cruel place. First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, I've already said it, no soul burden with the sin will bear the burden of another. Yeah, thank you, Coach Tahmina. So you did nothing wrong, mom or dads, okay? And I wish I could turn back the clock sometimes. I know you can't, but I wish I could turn back the clock. I didn't know then when that dad said what he did. It was so clear he loved his son, but he genuinely believed that, because that's a belief that is quite ingrained in our communities. But unless and until we talk about it and we question those beliefs, because it was really, with that dad, if he genuinely believed he did something wrong and he could not believe what he'd done to upset, Allah, that his child is suffering like this. But his child just needed support and awareness. People, he was on his way to get support for his child, yeah. But in that moment, he genuinely believed, and that belief really can be crippling. And can you imagine a parent parenting from a place that they are really bad? It can take you away from Allah sometimes. So we have to be so careful what we tell people. These people who tell women, other women, they think, well, you did something wrong. I had people telling me I must not have prayed properly when I was pregnant with my child. I had people telling me that, did I not give zakat on time because my son's X, Y, and, do you understand what I mean? I had people, and when you're struggling and you're coming to terms, and you've got to understand, if you're not a parent of a child with special needs, it is a journey, not just for the child, but it's a journey for the parent, because parents have, most of us on here are parents. When you're pregnant or when you're expecting a child, you have dreams about your child's future. When your child is born, you have dreams about their future, whether you want them to be a doctor or a hafiz or whatever it is, or whether you want them to be, this type of member of a community or not. And then when you realize that, oh, hold on, they're not going to be able to have the ability, potentially not have the ability to achieve X, Y, and Z, then you have to readdress that expectation. And it's a journey. And they're like, and trying to come to terms with it takes time. It's almost like grieving the loss of a child that you had hoped for. But then once you go through that process and then you look at the child in front of you and you see the child for who they are and you see the beauty in them, there is just so much beauty. And whether you have a child with additional needs or not, each child is individual and has their own unique, challenges, and has their own unique, abilities, okay? And as parents, our responsibility is to lead them and support them, okay? And in order to be able to lead them and support them, our mental health has to be in a good place. And in order for us to show the best version of ourselves to our children, we have to believe in our ability to parent them in Allah's choice in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's choice in choosing us to parent them. Allah chose us to be the parent of these special children because we have the ability. We are more than capable. Yeah, not because we did something wrong. And these children, you know, let's be honest, you know, in society doesn't even forget Muslim community, society doesn't openly talk about it. But even in the, you know, in the world as a large, a lot of the achievements in the world have been achieved by people who are neurodiverse because they think differently, they think outside the box, they were able to think in a way that somebody else didn't and they achieved more. You know, Bill Gates, I mean, I'm just throwing a name there, but even I think his name now, Albert Einstein, he was considered to be, you know, a lot of historians believe that he's autistic. I remember studying this, yeah, but there's a lot of people, even in the Muslim community, who, because they're different, because they think different, because their brain functions different, and therefore they are neurodiverse, and they are neurodiverse, they achieve differently. The world is a better place because of it. But there, like Sister says, there are a lot of people who are adults who don't even have a diagnosis, but you know, they find out when they're older, maybe. But they've achieved these things because they are different. There is a place for your child. It's just very difficult sometimes when they're young and they can't communicate in the way we are used to expecting children to communicate. And a lot of awareness has been raised, you know, and I am so thankful for the support my children had when they were younger, support that I had. But frankly, there's not enough awareness, in my opinion, in the Muslim community. And that is why today I really wanted to bring this up, talk to you about it, and, you know, open the chat up to you sisters who have been very kind enough to listen to me waffle on about this, to talk about what your experiences are, or even write about if you don't want to. But please feel free to unmute if you want to see where you are at the moment. If anybody wants to unmute and say anything, please do let me know. And what you think. Walaikum salam.
You've opened up a can of worms, you know, there's so much I want to say.
Yeah.
But I agree with you.
Yeah.
This is something that it's I don't think it's just, you know what, it's not just the Muslim community. I think it's communities in general, they just do not want to address this.
Why do you think this is? Why do you think that is?
It's personal because, you know, through, like, from the beginning of time, if you think about it, one thing that's innate in everybody, I truly believe, is the knowledge that's been shoved down your throat, which is we're all sinners and we're all going to die as sinners. Now, if they look at it closely, like if they really look at it, there's two ways it can go. One is they literally give up on life and they're like, yeah, that's, you know, so this is my lot in life. This is something I have to, you know, it's like my cross to bear, and this is how I have to be. So whatever's going to happen, it's all negative.
Yeah.
But then you have the other side, which is, you know what, so what if I have this cross to bear? I'm not going to let it stop me. And I'm going to do it in a way that, you know, that is beneficial for me. It's everyone's looking out just for themselves. It's very few people that are looking out for the community.
It's hard though, sis. I'll be honest. I mean, I'll just interject, you know, because as a parent myself, because I worked in schools as well, so I saw it from that perspective, but I also saw it as a parent. It was just like, I can just, some days it was like, I can just about manage what's happening in my life. I can just manage my emotions around it. And you're coming to terms with people judging you, judging yourself, let's be honest. Yeah, sometimes you start believing it. And then like coaching has helped me to really overcome these. But all that, sometimes you can only just about manage that. You can only manage that little world of yourself and your child and maybe your partner and the few people. And just thinking beyond that is sometimes, especially when the children are young and they have, you know, certain types of needs as well, you can't think, it's really difficult. Do you not think that's
the thing? This is where I get upset with society in general, because people say, oh, you know, you have to live in a society. And one thing that I've always thought and I've always said is people make the society. We help people, we don't help society.
Yeah.
It's when we help the people, that's how we help the society. And this is where I don't know if knowledge has helped people or it has pushed people further away, because that saying, you know, it takes a village to raise one child.
Yeah.
It's something that's been in my head for so long, especially since I had children. In fact, when I was a child myself, because you know, like how one of the sisters I noticed, sorry, I don't know if it's a sister or brother, but one of the things that the parent mentioned was people don't get diagnosed until maybe their child is getting diagnosed. They see
Yeah.
the similarities, which is what has happened to me.
Oh.
But then at the same time, there are some people who have like an idea. You know, sometimes not everyone goes through life oblivious. They know, they have an inkling at the back of their head. And like any individual, nobody takes criticism. Nobody.
But that's the thing that we see being labeled as someone having additional needs as criticism. That in itself is what I want to change. I want to change the lens to that. It's just you're different. That different isn't bad. Unique isn't bad. You know, it doesn't have to be. But if as a community we change that lens, can you see how society will change?
But that's the problem. Where do we get the community unless we get the like-minded
we started off with conversations like this, you know, raising awareness. And I mean, for me, that this has been a long time coming, even as a mom. I mean, that's why I got so emotional, because it's been quite, well, today's conversation has been quite cathartic in a way as well. But it's been a long time coming, because I think conversations need to happen. People may disagree, and there will be a lot of people rejecting, oh no, or we don't do this as a community. But I've experienced it, I've seen it. I literally, even as, was it yesterday or the day before, I spoke to someone, you know, about how parents are not, you know, they believe a child in the school setting has got some additional needs, but obviously the school cannot do anything without parents' permission, and that child is being treated as someone who has got bad behavior or whatnot, but the parents are not willing to get the support because they don't want the child to be labeled because of what it might mean for the child's future or them.
And that's the thing, it's the individual. When the individual start changing that thinking, like my one of the things I know is, as soon as I found out about my child's diagnosis, and through that, when you know, his dad and I were talking, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is me, or this was me, and that's like me. One of the things we had to do is we had to accept our part that was, you know, just hidden. And this is where, you know, acceptance goes a long way. Just
acceptance is key. Acceptance is key. That's how you submit to the will of Allah, you know?
Yes. And it's like, but when I spoke, so what I did was I spoke to the two individuals in the family that I knew would not take it well. And
you were brave. I didn't. I didn't. No. I couldn't. I was like, oh my God, how am I need to wrap my head around it. And
I shouldn't have done that, maybe, because to this day, it's been like, well, almost 11 years. To this day, they refuse to acknowledge that they need to change their viewpoint.
Well, you know what, sis? This comes back to the fact that you can't control the way somebody else thinks. You did what you could. You put it out there, and you can't change somebody else's perception of something. But you can, look, a doubt rocks the belief, right? They have certain beliefs. You put a bit of seed of doubt in there. It's, again, when there's shaitan, how does shaitan get to us? Yeah, we have a belief, and the shaitan puts doubt in it. Okay, so we don't let shaitan put doubt in it. Okay, but people have these beliefs, and that's why here I want to put it out there. I want them, you know, us questioning. Even myself, I've had to overcome my own, you know, perception about certain things, because, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put me in a position of taking care of, not just as a mother, but also when I used to work in the school setting. You just put some doubt in this, but you've got to do your job as a mom is to lead your flock. Okay, so you do the best by your flock. I myself, initially with my children, I didn't tell family straight away because I had to wrap my head around it, and then some family members actually got offended that I didn't tell them. They took it to mean something about them, and this is where I would like to talk to the group at large is, you know, if you think somebody in your family has needs, the judgment if you give to the mother or the father for not telling you, or for not dealing with it the way you want, it's just going to knock them more. It is like, don't take it personally. They're on their own journey. Like myself, I was on my own journey wrapping my head around it, and then when I felt ready, I talked to certain people. Do you understand? Initially it was like, oh, what does that mean? I didn't know anybody in my family with autism. Do you understand? I don't know what that means. So I had to go and what does that mean for my child and whatnot? Yeah. So it is, I mean, you're brave. You talked about it, but then you got this certain reaction. But again, that reaction you got from the other person says that's not in your control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you control over your own actions and reactions. So you do the best you can. You put a doubt in that belief that they have that you believe isn't positive, yeah. Then, and that's all you can do. It's not in your control. Sorry, I interjected, but I felt the need to say
No,
that.
no, it's fine. I just I think my connection is really bad, so I thought let me just mute myself. But no, that's the thing. I do agree with that, and I do understand that individuals, we need to change our thinking. It's not one of the things is we stop forgiving ourselves.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that is
Because Allah forgives us so readily, and yet we are so unforgiving to ourselves. And then when we are unforgiving to ourselves, that impacts the way we parent. Yeah. And then sometimes somebody's society as large is judging you, then you take it on board. That's what is so important. That's why I say, in my opinion, to support a child with additional needs, we must alongside support the mother and the father. It's so important to do that, because that has a huge impact on the child's well-being. And that's why society needs to change their lens with regards to, it being a punishment or it being something bad. And it's not going to happen overnight, but that's why it's so important to have these discussions. Sorry, Sister Fiona saying, I'm just going to quickly say that was Sister Fiona saying, she's saying it can be quite isolating. It's true. If you don't have people to talk to about this, it can be very isolating. But that's why I wanted to open up this, and you can always, message me if you want. But find like-minded other people in your situation. Find people, like Sister just said, she opened up to somebody who didn't talk about it very, who didn't take it very well. But then you said you learned from that, then maybe not approach them again. Yeah. Or just put a doubt in that and then leave it at that, because you can only control what's in your what's in your remit. Yeah. So is it Coach Tahmina? Did you want to say something? You put your hand up.
Yes, I did actually. Going on from what Kiran mentioned about, like, a lot of people don't want to admit that the children have any needs, any special needs. Like, and with my own personal experience, I know it can become quite difficult because people misjudge you. People start saying stuff like, "Oh, what's wrong with your child? Why is she like this?" And I have my daughter. She's autistic, and people often ask, like, "Oh, she looks okay. What's wrong with her?"
Yeah, it's called a hidden disability.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's something that, like, the thing is, when people put you down, you actually start feeling like, oh, there's something wrong. But actually, there's nothing wrong. Alhamdulillah, she's fine. She's just special in her own way. And I think she's one of the most amazing people out there, because she doesn't see people for the way other people see people. She, I think that makes her much more, one of those, like we say, special, but really special, like loving, caring. She doesn't.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I meant about,
people beyond what they are. Like,
she may have her challenges in life because she sees the world slightly differently, but she also has these attributes, and then that's what we focus on grows, right? So if as a society we're always focusing on the challenges that people face, we're not going to see these attributes. And it's so important that we move our focus from just looking at the challenges that people who are different face to the attributes they bring. Like I said, they're like, one of the sisters was saying, Steve Jobs, there's people who are supposed to be considered to be successful, but then if you look at carefully, then they've got different needs. They're different. They're neurodiverse, and they've come a long way because of this. Sister Salma saying, I think not admitting it is issues around shame that needs to be addressed. A lot of cultures don't understand and will blame the mother for a child that has additional needs, and that's dangerous. It can also lead the parent to resent the child. Absolutely. Sister, that is what I mean. This is why I'm talking about the mother, and even like that dad I spoke about. That dad had clearly been told and had really genuinely believed that he did some grave sin, that his child was, suffering. But the child's not suffering. Because the child is different doesn't mean that they're suffering. And it's, the Quran is very clear on this. And, you know, we can't change our older generations, but we can change our views, and we can rock those beliefs by putting doubt in there and saying, well, no, that's not what the Quran says. You know, and if a mother is going there raising a child in a resentful way, can you imagine what that does to the child? You don't have to be a child with additional needs to grow up with insecurities if your mother resented you. You know, and I have coached adult Muslim women who later on found out that they were neurodiverse, and the impact of parents and partners and family members saying, you're dumb, why don't you get it, you know, all sorts of other things, you're stupid, you know, other people can get it, the comparisons, the far-reaching impact on it is heartbreaking. The sisters, it was really bright, very academic, very bright, but she just, you know, when it came to the social side of things, she struggled with it. And you'll find that many, not all, you know, because autism, for example, is a spectrum. So, you know, like Coach Shamino was mentioning, her daughter doesn't seem like as if she's got a disability. It's considered a hidden disability, but that's not to say that she doesn't think differently. It's not to say that she hasn't got attributes that are beautiful. But if a mother and the close loved ones only focus on the challenges and the difficulties, then that's what all the child is going to see. And that's the internal dialogue the child is going to have and grow up with and take into adulthood. And we do not want that. We want people in our community who believe in them. We want resilient children who are different, as well as resilient children who are neurotypical. Okay. And for that, it starts. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, can I just mention something while you're there? When I accepted my daughter for who she is and how she is, her attitude, her confidence, and our whole entire family dynamics changed. Like there was no, you know, these things like getting upset. Why can't you understand this? All of this. When we realized, okay, she's different and she's good. She's going to do it her way. Alhamdulillah, things changed, and that took me to coach my, you know, go through that coaching process to really understand and overcome those beliefs that I had, that because I was seeing her disability first before I saw her.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to go beyond. We need to see the person for who they are before we see that they've got a disability, they've got special needs. Yes, that's there, but they are an individual.
Yeah.
And if in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that we have all been created as people and nations, so that we can know each other, because we're all different. If we were all the same, then that would be total. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have created us all the same. He's created us all different.
And we all belong here. Every single one of us, even ones of us who are non-verbal, we have a purpose here, even if it is to be the person who gets looked after by somebody else, who earns the Jannah, the Akhirah, because our children who are different are our, you know, keys to Jannah as well. Yeah. And also what I find is that when you raise a child believing that the child is believing that there's something wrong with the child has grows up, like I said, with really major insecurities. But if you believe as a mother that, yeah, I'm being blessed with this special child because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted me with this child is not an extension of you, this child is your amana, okay, from Allah entrusted you with that child because you are capable of raising that child, and you take that responsibility seriously, and you raise that child and you lead that child, yeah, in a way that helps them be resilient. Because any child, with I have children who are neurodiverse and I have children who are neurotypical. So I have children who have additional needs and I have children who don't have additional needs. And I'm 4 children, okay? Every single one of them has their own challenges. And every single one of them has their own attributes. So you've got to raise them, and they're going to come across and I've had a child who's neurodiverse who's been bullied. I've had a child who's not got additional needs who's been bullied. But experiences make them resilient. You've got to support them through it. They're going to come across in this real world. Any one of us joining today who hasn't had a hard time, whether you have additional needs or not. We've had trials. This is this is part of life. This dunya, we have trials, but we can't protect them by not labeling them. They are going to still be different, even if you don't label them as autistic, or if you don't label them as ADHD, or whatever else the diagnosis may be. They're still going to be different. And if they didn't get the support at a young age, if they don't get the support and the understanding and the compassion, especially the compassion, then they're going to make in beliefs about themselves. Yeah. And this is important because we often want, as a society, for people, whether they're different, to mask their differences and, you know, take on board. And this is one thing my son has, you know, I've watched my son do, and sometimes, you know, I know why he does it. I just wish he didn't have to. He masks his difference and he watches people and he, you know, changes himself. So he tries to be like other people. What we really want is we need to go into their world and try and understand their world, so they don't have to change, so they don't have to mask themselves. Because what happens when children mask themselves is mask their, when I saw Sister Fiona, masking, I mean as in like they have a difference, but they don't show it, they hide it, they hold it down, or they're having some sensory issues. And what they do is they hold it in, but then they blow up afterwards. Because this is, you know, hiding yourself is not your true nature. And that's why sometimes children blow up with their parents. As I wrote an article about it. But often, yeah, sometimes your son masks, but he's not, you said your son masks, but he's not autistic. Yeah, it doesn't have to be autistic, but they might be different in some sense because they want to fit in. But we want our children to be so empowered that they feel like they belong as they are, who they are. But that comes from the mom and dad first. Yeah, mom and dad and society. But, you know, if the parent accept the child as they are, they will feel that there's nothing wrong with them. It's when a child thinks there's something wrong with them, they feel the need to mask. It's when the child thinks something wrong with them, they develop, you know, self-deprecating views about themselves, that they, you know, it impacts their resilience and whatever type. Yeah, that, yes, of course it's exhausting because you're trying not to be somebody, you're trying to be somebody you're not, sis. It's very exhausting. But what was I saying? Yeah, masking and a child being something that they're not is important for parents to accept it. But one of the reasons I find, not just my own experience, but having spoken to and been working in school, that parents find it hard to be so accepting is because society as large, that where the communities that they come from, will judge them and their child, and therefore the fear of their child being judged, potentially not belonging, them being judged, makes them want their child to mask. And I've been there, I've done it, and I'm trying to work, trying to discourage my son to do it now. Yeah, but it's a learning process for all of us. If the society at large, and I'm hoping I'm not losing all of you in this, society at large change their viewpoint and are accepting of these different, unique superheroes, unique individuals who bring their own attributes, then the parents won't need or feel the need, because they won't be judged, won't feel the need to hide it, won't feel the need to encourage the child to mask it. And the child, what happens? The child will feel accepted, will not grow up feeling that there's something wrong with them. Because when a parent or a society at large, doesn't accept the child will want to mask their, differences so they fit in, because that's human nature. Yeah. But what I want and what's best for the world, I believe, is if every individual feels that they can be who they are, as long as it is pleasing to Allah, who they are as they are, and be accepted. But that child comes feeling like that comes from the parent, and the parents, a lot of their beliefs, it comes from how they are worried about what society will perceive them as. Ultimately, we all want to look at how we will be seen by Allah. Okay, what is pleasing to Allah? We are leading our flock. We have to not care about what society say. But the reality of living in this world is we do get impacted by it. Not every one of us will have the coaching like the way I did, or some, and be able to reject it. And even when I wasn't being coached, it's really hard to come to terms with it, especially the fear of their future, fear of you being judged, everything. It can be quite demoralizing as well. And that, that actually starts with us slowly having conversations like this in the community, all these myths about children, these beliefs that, the parents did something wrong or the mother did something wrong. We've got to break that. We've got to really question it. We've really got to knock it, and just those voices need to be quietened. And the voices, our voices, we're saying, no, the mother did nothing wrong. The mother is amazing. The mother is special. Allah entrusted this special child to that mother, has got to be louder. So that child, that mother takes that into the parenting, and that child believes that he or she is special because their mother believes that they are special. I hope that makes sense. Anybody else want to unmute?
Exactly, because our children mirror us. So, and whatever we're going to be reflecting on them, that's what they're going to be believing. So yeah,
yes, Salam sisters, Sister Rukshanara, I just wanted to say quickly, I totally agree. Sorry, I missed some of it. My daughter's school ran, so I missed some of the session. But I was thinking, with my daughter has autism and something called sensory processing difficulties. She just turned 9. But I mean, I was going to say, in terms of, I agree with quite a lot of things that everybody said in the chat and what you guys have been discussing, is that when my daughter got the diagnosis, sisters, what I was trying to do is Googling, what's Islam's perspective on special needs, that kind of thing. And trying to turn back to the deen. And this is why I think sometimes it's a bit lacking, because this is what I say to local people, sisters, why don't they cover them in the masajid, in the khutbahs and the talks? You have a Mufti Meg here, you could find him say something, or what's that other guy's name? I can't remember his name, but the Yaqeen Institute, I think he talks about
Sheikh Umar Salman.
That's it, yeah. He talked, he's the one of the exceptions that he talks about, the benefits. I think there needs to be more focus on that, because everybody tends to focus on, because if you don't know, it's like ignorance. It's like
and the people fill in the gaps.
People
fill in the gaps, don't they?
They
and
do.
That's dangerous.
Exactly. So it's like you guys were saying. It's like I said to a friend of mine who doesn't have a special needs child. I said, just about how sometimes when people think you, they think about you, they judge you and stuff. But she said the thing is, your daughter could take you to Jannah. I didn't think that's true of other people. Do you see what I mean? And I think when she said that, I thought, wow, but that is, no one's ever said that to me before. And I think it's about keeping it in mind. It's not like it's a done deal, because I know some parents who say, oh, our child's got additional needs and Jannah's been promised to us, because that's not the case. Jannah's not been promised to anybody. But you have to have to work for it. But I think, I'm like I said, my daughter's 9, subhanAllah, sisters, and like I said, she's got quite complex needs. She's off school at the moment. I'm homeschooling her. She's got sensory processing difficulties where she finds it difficult to tolerate clothes. So that is like a major challenge for us. But I say to people, it takes a special kind of person to raise a special, special parent.
Absolutely.
It's not
and Allah chose you, sis. Allah chose you because you are the best person to raise that daughter with complex needs. Doesn't that make you feel amazing? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his innate wisdom, he's the wisest of all, chose you to raise that child who is different, because you have the capabilities. He believes in you. Can you see that lens? It's so different.
But people, I think you need sisters. The things where you need people continuously. I think I'm so glad, Sister Rukshanara, that you've done this, because I feel like maybe it's just me, but I feel like there needs to be a lot more proactive sisters, a lot more like Coach Tamina. I mean, obviously, I'm one of your regulars, but I didn't know Coach Tamina, for example. I mean, I know people say, well, what does it matter either way? But I think the more people talk about it, look, actually, you're not the only one, because I can totally relate to what Sister Fiona's saying, that it can. I always say to people, it's a journey, and it can be quite isolating. And the thing is, what you sisters were saying, you have to be sensitive, because this is what I was saying to somebody recently. Like, if you suspect that your nephew or someone else in your family has got additional needs, I know I've recently talked to somebody who said, oh, my sister, I think that she's her son's got special needs, but she doesn't want to, she's in denial, or she's had another baby.
No, but we've all been there. Let's be honest. Like, your daughter's 9. We've all been there. I remember the first time my son's teacher told me, I think he might be on the spectrum. I'm like, what is that? No, my reaction, I kid you not, sisters. No, my son's not. Because I did not want my son to be different. I didn't know what it meant for my child. The fear of the unknown was like, no, shut down. I don't want to deal with this. Obviously I came around, but that's my first reaction. But then I had to go on a journey, and then to be ready to tell others. And if I don't have a very close relationship with you, I'm not going to openly tell you straight away. Please respect that. And that goes for society at large. Don't take it personally. And then also, if you think somebody's child might have it, don't just judge them for it because they're not getting support. support, be there, be, you know, like,
Exactly. Yeah.
be there for them, be a non-judgmental space. Because if someone senses your judgment, even if you don't say anything to them, they will sense it from your body language and the way you interact with them. If they sense it, they're not going to open up to you. You want someone to open up to you, and then for you to suggest, look, I read about this, I wonder if you want to get support. I'm just saying, it might not be the case, you know, just approach it like that, because ultimately the goal is to get support for the child. The goal is not to humiliate, embarrass, or put down the mother for not getting the support. You don't know what she's going through, yeah? Or him, sorry, because I'll be honest, I talk about mothers generally because of my own experience, but I still remember, I'll never forget. It's been, I don't know how many years, but that dad, I didn't have the knowledge back then, but I wish I could go back and tell him it's not your fault. I really wish. If you guys, sisters, don't take anything from this, please, 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 sisters. This thing about punishment, oh my goodness. You know, sisters, it is not a punishment. Being different is not a punishment. Being unique is not a punishment. You know, I did an article on this. What do we want for our children? We want special things for them. But we don't want them to be normal, do we? We want them to be extraordinary. We want them to have like amazing, experiences in their life. But then when they're different, we don't want that either. It's like, you know, it's a, I don't know what the phrase is, dichotomy, if that's the right word, but you know, we are our own worst enemies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed unique people amongst us. Let's appreciate that. Let's try and understand their world, not expect them to come to our world and mask themselves. Let's try and if we can accept them, they can choose to be who they are. And if they need support, we provide it. I know some sisters were saying on the chat, I'm really sorry, I've not been able to keep on top of the chat, otherwise I get distracted. But some people say, how do you get diagnosis? Myself personally, I did it through school, but you can go through GPs and you can apply personally as well. It is a long process. It is, I had to appeal because I didn't get enough support. I know one of the sisters, I know it was, I've sometimes had to go to trial, but please don't, tribunal, please don't get put off by it. The sooner you get the diagnosis, the sooner you get support for your child, the sooner your child will get help and understand the world. And I kid you not, my son, I prayed so much for my son to get support because he was so behind his peers. And then 1 year he had this teacher at school. And you will not know, sisters, how Allah will answer your questions. As a mother, Allah always answers your du'as. You will not know how your du'as will be answered. And I remember thinking, how is this going to happen? How am I going to help him? I'm pregnant as well, whatnot, I've got other commitments. I had just lost my mom I had just lost my mom. And I was grieving. So it was really difficult. But then I just thought, no, I'm going to trust in Allah. And I know sometimes it can be quite insulting when people say, oh, just make dua. But dua is key. I'm not saying just make dua, full stop. Make dua and take action. A successful believer is one who makes dua and takes action. Okay. So I remember making dua, and 1 year, academic year, and this teacher was in the school for just 2 years. My son had this really amazing teacher, and she would give me all this support, extra resources to support him. And like, not everybody got that, but I just thought, okay, she's quite supportive. And at the end of the year, I did give her a gift, and she said, look, I'm really proud, because mashallah, in that academic year, he really came on, like he really flourished and he jumped ahead. And it was at the end, she told me she has a brother herself who has special needs. And she said, I know what it's like. I watched my mom struggle. So she gave up her PPA time, support time that she should be planning, and she'd give her free time to give me resources. And so I got that support in that regard. You don't know how you're going to get how you're going to get support. And even like Sister Fiona, you're saying you're going to a tribunal. May Allah make it easy for you. Make dua, take action, do your best. That's all you can do. Do what's in your control, okay? Do the best. Don't get affected by what other people say. It's easier said than done, I know, but the support will come. Believe in Allah. Have high expectations of Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am as my servant thinks of me. Okay, so go in there with high expectations of Allah, knowing that He chose you because you are the best person to be your child's advocate, to be your child's leader, to be your child's, to be the shepherd of your flock. Okay, but yeah, Sister Rosina, went off track again because, like I said, I feel so passionately about this topic. I can talk about this.
You're the same, but I was going to say to Sister Fiona, with the tribunal, I've kind of been there, but the thing is sometimes you don't always get what you want for your child in the way that you want it.
Yes, exactly.
it can be a battle. This is why I was saying that anybody who, I just think generally just any people who've got children with additional needs of any sort, we really need to reach out to each other as part of the Muslim. Obviously, there's other support groups with a Muslim narrative, Islamically, because we're all part of an ummah. We need to reach out to each other. Whether you're going to a Send tribunal, whether you're going, wherever you are on your journey, as they call it, the Send journey, whether you're battling for the services, because the diagnosis is sometimes the beginning of the process. Sometimes you have to battle. Sometimes you don't always get what you want. Sometimes it can be really, really difficult and your mental health suffers. But in all of that, I think, alhamdulillah, the fact that if you bring it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you bring it back to the deen, I think that makes all the difference. Because this is what makes us different from, like, the non-Muslims. Whereas they say, it must be really difficult for you. But remembering in those moments, alhamdulillah, how far you've come in your journey. So I think we really need to support each other, I think, to be honest. And I was just going to say lastly, because I know obviously other sisters want to talk, is that sometimes people, they tend to focus always on what your child can't do as compared to other children. What about all the things they can do? Like somebody said to me, and I said, what about the fact that my daughter doesn't lie, or she doesn't, I don't know, do some other stuff that the neurotypical children do? What about focusing on that? We
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, it's changing our focus. What you focus on grows. If you're just going to focus on the challenges someone faces, that's all you're going to see. But that's not just a child with additional needs, that's yourself as well. If you yourself only focus on your faults, that's all you're going to see. That's because that's giving whatever you say is giving your brain an instruction. Your brain doesn't question it. It'll go looking for evidence of where you made mistakes. But if you tell yourself, my child is amazing, you will find examples of how you're amazing your child is, even if it is your child smiling or your child falling over and getting back up, because that's such a big deal for them. Do you understand? I remember the first time my child read surahs, like, because he was really struggling and he was behind his peers. The first time my child read surahs, I just thought, subhanallah, like I was in tears. I mean, and years later, I remember making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, oh please, and I think Sister Rosina, you've heard this before, but about just teach him enough surahs that he can have a connection with you through salah. My son has memorized the whole of Juz Amma, okay? Because he, mashallah, and that's more than I can. You make dua, you don't know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to answer it. But have high expectations and do your best. Like Sister Fiona, just try your best. Sisters out there, just do your best. Just action it, But it starts with us as a community changing our lens on how we perceive these unique individuals. And the blame, let's please let go of the blame, because the blame leads to the shame. Okay, because one of the sisters mentioned in the group, I'm sorry I lost your name, but she said that the parents don't want to get the diagnosis because they're worried about the shame that will come with the label. But why does the label have to come with the shame? Why does your child being different or having additional needs have to come with why does a parent have to be blamed for it? There's no need. There's absolutely no, this is all human made. This is not from Allah. This is not from our deen. This is something that's just different societies. And I'm not just saying Muslim community, different communities are made up. People have moved on. Our community needs to move on, but we need to have these conversations and we need to rock those negative beliefs.
I was thinking, Sister Rukhsana, also, I've often come across people who say, they try to see why. So was it the vaccinations, or when did your child change? All this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like, I'm not being judgmental if people want to have those conversations, but I personally don't feel that it's, how productive is that? Because at the end of the day, we believe in Qadr Allah. So your child is, I think, again, it's changed that lens. Your child is exactly the way they were supposed to be. You didn't do anything. But I find this kind of thought more prevailing, like in the Bengali, Bangladeshi, and the like I'm Pakistani, but South Asian kind of, I don't know whether. And you're right. I think we're Muslims. We're supposed to be leading by example, whereas the other non-Muslim world seem to have more rights for, like people with disabilities, etc. We seem.
But you know what? It's because they're putting themselves out there. Because the fear isn't there, and we need to overcome that fear as a community. But the parents, I've been there. Why do they fear it? And we can say you shouldn't, but there's a reason why they fear. Why is there shame? Because, there has been blame. Or they've seen it. Some of these beliefs are ingrained, or some of these parents, when they were young, were told, oh, so-and-so's child is like that because they sinned or they did something. The number of times I've come across sisters being told, or stories, about sisters being told that they did something wrong while they were pregnant. And I can talk to that myself. Got told, I didn't pray properly while I was pregnant with my son. Like, excuse me, that's, and it's just like, I can laugh about it now, but at the time I really second guessed myself. And this really is not very, even if, you know, the parent is healthy, it's really unhealthy mentally for them. And then again, that impacts the child and the child's well-being. Oh, I just realized it's 5:05. I'm supposed to 3, so I should finish soon. It's been really amazing, sisters. Did anybody else actually want to talk? I didn't realize. Who is it, sister? I'm going to quickly talk. Sister Amina, you want to talk? And then Sister Rashida quickly. I'll finish this about 3:15 today. Sister Amina, do you want to unmute?
Assalamu alaikum, sisters.
Wa alaikum salam.
First, assalamu alaikum to everyone, and I hope you all well. My experience, I'm a mother of a 23 years old, so I'm probably one of the oldest one here in the room. You know, I can't go on for hours and hours, but I just want to stick to one subject, really. You know, all these years, since my son was born, you know, I came to the conclusion, my God, the Muslims, they don't have children with special needs because I
Really?
don't see them. I don't see
Oh,
them.
because it's not talked about enough. People just,
It's not just not talked about. I don't see them. And even, you know, the same problem back home in my country.
which
You
country are
don't
you
see
from, sis?
Morocco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't see children, families with the children disabled or with special need. You don't see them anywhere, except unfortunately the ones who use them to beg in the street will put a disabled child next to her to beg the passing by. So I have to say I'm very disappointed with the Muslim community here in the UK when it comes to doing things or offering help or anything to do with children with special need. And you will notice it even more once your child is getting older, becoming a teenager. Like I said, my son is 23 years old. I've tried, I'm not the mother or the parents who like sitting at home, you know, I don't want to go anywhere with my child. I was never that parent.
Yeah.
I'm always out and about. After I approached so many Muslims places, you know, mosque, you know, clubs, and every time I'm talking about the Muslim ones, they will tell me, oh, sorry, we don't cater, we don't offer nothing for young adults with special need, or, you know, or even children. So even sisters, even when I tried, excuse me, when I tried to seek help and advice, and I put like an announcement in a lot of groups, I don't even get a response from no one. So I'm very, very disappointed. You know, even like when you go to, even like, you know, this Muslim talks, like a retreat, competition, wherever you go, there is nothing done for children with
There's
special
no
needs.
more,
And
not
really,
incorporation.
it's really, it breaks
Inclusive.
my heart.
Yeah.
It really breaks my heart because, you know, that the one thing that I disliked about this system is that you know, we I'm sorry, my English is not my first
It's okay.
language,
I'm
so please
understanding you. I'm
forgive me.
fully understanding you.
Yeah,
Sis.
it's like I'm against, you know, when they say, oh, school for special need, this for, you know, because those children, they are part of the society. So if you're going to start by having like a special nursery for them, special school for them, you know, when they grow older, they're not going to have a special restaurant for them, special bus for special needs, you know, because they are part of the society,
Yeah,
and they
you
should
integrate
be
them.
included.
You need
They
to be
should
integrated. Yeah.
Yeah, they should be there. We should see them. We should understand, you know, they are part of the society and they deserve they deserve that. It's their right. So more so, unfortunately, like I said, I'm very disappointed with the Muslim community. They don't talk about it. They have nothing to offer for them. Like my son, when he's become when he was become a teenager, and he's 23 years old now. He doesn't have a physical disability. He's got mild to medium to moderate learning difficulties, ADHD, some mild autism.
Okay.
He's still a young person, a young adult. He's good looking. He's not tall and handsome. He's got the desires. He want to be the same as the other young, young. He want to have a girlfriend. He want to get married. He want to have. I know it's haram to have a girlfriend, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
he want to have.
He wants the same as what his peers have.
Yes. Yes, and like I said, I've been asking around. I've been talking to. It's like I can't see. I felt so alone. I really did, because I can't see wherever I go. I don't see a family with special need child, and also the non-understanding. Unfortunately, my son, who used to love going to the mosque with his father, and because he's got behavior, he's got ADHD, and he does get into trouble behavior, he will be banned from coming to the mosque instead of
them understanding him.
Yes, instead of being welcomed, he will be banned, and from one mosque to the other mosque, which is really,
I think I come across this as well, where I think some of the younger generation starting. I'm speaking to my nephew. He's a teacher at a mosque, and he was saying like he himself realized that a child might have had ADHD, and he broached the father without talking about it, and then the father opened up. But because my nephew actually approached in a non-judgmental way, the father opened up. The problem is people approach in a very judgmental way and say, sort your child out, and your child's been misbehaving. They come with the judgment, and then the parents keep them away, or the people from the mosque, they don't choose to try and understand. We have a society need to help these children who are different to integrate, make provisions for them if you can't. There are some situations, some sort of mosques are too small or something, but there's got to be some provision somewhere, because some places have so many different mosques. At least one of them, do you understand what I mean? But the thing is, it starts with us having these conversations and the community at large changing their perception. If the community constantly wants, it's not just children with needs. Some mosques, they don't even like having kids, full stop. It's something that I don't know about you, but our community, sometimes we've as women have had to fight. I'm lucky I have Islam and Masjid not too far from me, but some mosques, they don't, women feel uncomfortable going because the kids make noise, and they're told you might as well pray at home because you don't have to be here. But sometimes us as women, we want to be in the mosque in that kind of environment. Yeah, it's not for us, but we want to be there. But it's like it's integrating, being inclusive. That's the word, being inclusive. I hear exactly what you're saying. I totally agree with you, sis.
Yes.
I wish I could suggest something. Really, really wish I could suggest something. It's just that we've got to keep having conversations like this. Like I said, as a community, as a Muslim community, and I'm really mindful of time. As a Muslim community, we've got to just change our lens on looking at these children like this. Okay, Sister Coach, thank you for your inputs, Sister Amina. Coach Rashida, did you want to say something? And I think I might have to go.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Rokshanara, an amazing session.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share with sisters, most of us, when we think of children with special needs, we look for special needs that are obvious. And some of us, like I have a son who he hasn't got specific special needs, but the way he understands things is different. And what I wanted to share with sisters is through the whole process of whether you choose to go to seek advice and help from the specialists, or whether you choose not to, the key thing is for you to communicate with your child. What I've found is when I didn't communicate with him, when I didn't explain why I was taking him to certain appointments, he came out with a view of the appointment, and actually at one point labeled himself as having a problem. And
that's what happens, community. So I'm just interjecting just because I just want to make a point. Community at large, when they don't know, they fill the gaps, but so do our kids. If they don't understand what's going on, they're going to fill the gaps in.
Exactly. But what he did was he took what the pediatrician was saying and he turned it on himself, and he made it, and he just a couple of days and he said, oh yeah, I've got a problem. You took me there because I've got a problem. But that's what he understood from what the pediatrician had explained. So then I turned it around and I've spoken to him. You know, alhamdulillah, I'm really grateful that I found coaching and I became a coach, because it really helped me to coach him. And
Likewise.
the key thing I say to everyone, regardless of whether your child's got a special need or not, is to explain things to your child. The minute I explained it to him, the moment I said, no, look, it's not that you've got a problem, it's that your school don't understand you. Your school can see that they need to help you, but they don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
So they're sending you to a specialist who will explain to them how to help you.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, that is exactly what happened. He got the help that he needed. They did try to put him on medication and I refused. That's my personal choice. And alhamdulillah, in the last 2 years, well, it'll be 3 now, but the 2 years that the school saw him, the teacher who actually put him up for being referred actually said, I can't believe the difference. 2 years, in 2 years, the difference that has happened with my son. And mainly because I understood what the pediatrician had told me. I fought for the help that he needed at school, but also at home, just the little things of communicating with him. If I've asked him to do something, he doesn't do it, I will say it again and I will ask him to repeat what I've just asked him to do.
And not
It
give too many
seems-
instructions. Just give
yeah,
short.
but sometimes it seems time consuming or like you're
Yeah.
repeating yourself.
But that's part of
actually,
being the parent of that
it-
particular child that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted you with.
it's understanding,
Yeah.
exactly. It's understanding how your child will
Mm.
understand something and how it needs to be explained to them. You know, for some, they'll get it straight away. And I know we're going over time, so forgive me. I just
No,
want
it's
to
okay.
share this with you. So we get lessons with Ustada Nisreen for Ziad, for my son, sorry. And the way she teaches him, and I asked her and I said, why do you teach him slightly differently to the way you taught me or you taught you know, my other friends' children's? And she says each child has a different way of learning. And then she took me, she said, remember, we tried all these different ways, but this is the way that it works for your son. And I just really, that really hit me, sisters, because I really thought, wow, look at that. I
She's an
sent him
amazing
to
teacher.
the local masjid, and he learned. I'm not going to say he didn't learn, but it was not an enjoyable experience. I sent him to Islamic school on a Saturday and he learned, and there he did, alhamdulillah, he did really well there. It just became a bit too much when it went online. And so we had to find an alternative, but it's just the way he learns. And he alhamdulillah, he is learning, he's enjoying, he looks forward to his lessons. But that's the key for me. It's also, you know, looking at how long he can spend in a lesson before he gets distracted, before he gets tired. And that's what I just wanted to share with sisters, is saying that, you know, you might not have a diagnosis. You might think your child, you know, doesn't listen, and sometimes they're labeled as naughty, but actually they're not. No child is born naughty. It's what we as humans, as parents, as adults, it's what we label it, and then what our children label it, and they then take on. But actually, just a little bit of, and trying to, you know, it's kind of like peeling the onion, taking the layers away, and saying, right, well, what is it that my child needs from me? So yeah, inshallah, I hope that helps other sisters. And just come back to the masjid that Sister Amina was saying. I'd really encourage you, sisters, to speak to your husbands and say, or your brothers, or your fathers, even your sons, and say, you know what, if you've gone to the masjid and you've seen someone telling someone off, like, just, you know, speak to an imam or speak to someone there and say, look, we need to show our children it's okay to come to the masjid, it's okay to be children. Obviously, We don't want them running around. Children, they need to be in the masjid to learn the environment. But at the same time, it's taken into account that some children, they're there, but they need to be able to say, right, okay, yep, I'm going to learn. And I say it because we've had something similar at a local masjid where I live, and they actually said, we don't want children coming.
Yeah.
And
that's hard.
parents, thankfully, the brothers stood up and said, no, we don't agree with this, because children need to come. Children need to, the boys especially, they need to come to know this is how it works.
Yeah.
This is what they need to do, because they're the future ummah.
Yeah.
And also,
Absolutely.
as they said, the new generation, I'm finding a lot now that the teachers, the imams now, they're also being open up to
Yeah.
special needs.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
also saying that, okay, someone's got a special need, we need to just take a little bit more patience with them. And, also for the other children around them. So, yeah, inshallah, Allah will make it easy for all of us.
Okay. Thank you for your input, sis. I really appreciate that. I know one other sister wanted to have a quick chat, put her hands up. I'm going to say just a couple of minutes, sister. It comes up as Rasul. If you'd like to unmute yourself and say something, sis, feel free. Just a few
Alaikum.
minutes, though, because I think a lot of us, even not me
Of
included,
course.
need to go and do a school run.
Of course.
Wa alaikum salam.
I'll keep it as short as possible. I just want to say, with regard to the masjids, I think they are coming on board slowly.
Yeah, I believe
surely.
that too. Yeah.
We've got a local masjid down the road, alhamdulillah. They've built a sensory room, especially.
Oh, mashallah.
They recognized it. So they have now actually brought in a specialist and an OT to work with the children once they get their funding in place.
Yeah.
So things are happening with the masjid. As talks have gone on, I've now spoken to them about a carers health empowerment program, which I did with the other local authority, and they've asked me to come in and do some workshops for the local community. My belief behind doing that was always to share that knowledge, because there's a hadith about it as well, that you shouldn't hoard knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
The purpose is to allow the community to have tools as well, so they can then go out and advocate for their children, know how to fill in the welfare benefit forms. There was a few modules basically, just to equip them with that knowledge. And that's how it should be. You should share your knowledge. And I believe that there should be a wider platform. I know in other masjids, I know Finsbury Park for sure, they had an autism hour a few years back.
Yeah.
And it was basically opening up the doors to these children and allowing them to run and not stopping them. Because they have sensory issues. So when the azan goes off, for example, and just to lower it down or lower the lighting. So my point is that we should come together, no matter how. I don't know how to get hold of, I don't know, this was a flyer that came around on a WhatsApp group for me, but I'm already part of a group here in London, but I think outside of that as well, we have some sisters from Birmingham. But if we could go bigger on that, because we have so much traffic on there, but it's all useful. If it's not useful for one person, it's always useful for another.
Somebody, yeah.
And we ask each other's support. We don't get support outside of that from local authority or schools like that. It's us individually helping each other, and we get further than we ever did. I mean, my journey's been 4 years only so far, but I've learned so much. And I now share that with people on the group who have just started their journey.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward you for that, sis. Really appreciate that. I mean, we have a WhatsApp group, Sister Seeking Salam. I don't know if you're on it, but if you go on Facebook and seek Sister Seeking Salam, we're on there as well. Right now, I have to go because I really getting late for school run. I was supposed to finish this at 3, but if you look for Sister Seeking Salam, excuse me, I've got blocked nose, on Facebook, I'll put a post in there with our WhatsApp link, and then you can join, because the WhatsApp is a little bit more proactive. I think, I don't know if Coach Tahmina, Tahmina, you still here, sis? I'll leave it open. I think she's had to go. I think a lot of people have had to go a bit of school run, but yeah. And you can contact me on that, sis, if you want. You can contact, you can put this message. There's a few coaches on the Sister Seeking Salam platform. You can message us on that, see where we can go with that. But yeah, I really think what you're doing is an amazing thing, sis. And this is what needs to happen. I'm so glad I've been wanting to do this for a while. It's just not happened, but alhamdulillah, finally managed to do it. So I really hope you sisters have benefited from this space, and just get in touch with each other if you can, and hopefully I will open up the chat after I do the school run in the WhatsApp group, so please put forward any takeaways you have. I did put my mobile number on this at some point, but I do get in touch even if it